Welcome to Freedom from Fire. As always, we'll give you a glimpse into the Philadelphia Fire Department, and we'll show you how you can keep yourself and your family safe. Today, we're talking about our Emergency Medical Services Division, or EMS, and we're recognizing Arson Awareness Week by discussing fire safety and how to talk to your kids about it. Stay tuned for Freedom from Fire. Hello and welcome to Freedom from Fire. I'm your host, Philadelphia Fire Department Communications Director, Rachel Cunningham. Here at Freedom from Fire, we aim to improve your quality of life by giving you fire, first aid, and other life-saving information. The month of May contains both Arson Awareness Week and EMS Week, so we'll be discussing both of those. So right now we'll get started with our guests. We've got Paramedic Lieutenant Chrissy Severio on the screen and Paramedic Jackie Murphy here next to me. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank y'all for being here. So we're going to start with you, Lieutenant Severio. Tell us about yourself and your role with PFD.
So my name is Chrissy Severio. I am a 25-year veteran as of next week on the 18th of May with the Philadelphia Fire Department. I started as a paramedic, obviously, became an officer. I am now the operations lieutenant for EMS A&E, which is apparatus and equipment. The office is responsible for supplying, maintaining every piece of equipment and supply that any PFD responder would use to care for any citizen throughout the city. So pretty important, but boring.
I was going to say, I feel like there's a lot of stuff there. So we'll get into that in a little bit. And Paramedic Murphy, on to you.
Jacqueline Murphy. I've been on for 15 years, which makes me much younger than Lieutenant Severio. I used to work North Philly when I was on the street. I'm currently assigned to EMS admin down at the Public Administration Building, and I work for CQI, which is Continuous Quality Improvement, making sure that the members are following protocol and using the equipment that Lieutenant Severio gives them in the correct way.
Excellent. So I'm glad you're both here giving a different look at EMS. So I wanted to dig in a little bit to how busy our EMS division is, which I'm sure you're both aware of, both in front of and behind the scenes. So to anyone watching, if you follow us on social media, Philly Fire Department on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, you'll see that we post daily totals of the calls that we get each morning. And the EMS numbers are always in the upper hundreds. 2022, we responded to 250,000 EMS calls. So Jackie, we'll start with you. Give us a general overview, as if no one knows, what does a member of the EMS team do in general?
Okay, so for the Philadelphia Fire Department, EMS literally does everything or is involved with almost everything that happens in this city. Not only are we responding to 911 emergency calls for anybody that calls for they're in cardiac arrest or they're lonely and their toe hurts, you're getting a medic unit from Philadelphia Fire Department. We also respond along with the fire side of it on all structural fires and hazmats and such, and that's a majority of what we do, but there's so many other things that we do. Every large scale event, Made in America, Broad Street Run, where we just had to resuscitate at cardiac arrest during the marathon. We do community outreach. We have units in different areas of the city where their most common problem is Narcan needs. Like, we literally are involved with every part of the city in some shape or way. Like, if you hear something on the news, Philadelphia Fire Department is involved in it, and EMS is normally right along with them.
And Chrissy, do you have anything you want to add to that about what EMS is and does?
No, I think Jackie summed it up. The EMS is the unforgotten or underappreciated component of the fire department. We touch everyone's lives, be it we wear many hats, whether we are all trained medical professionals, but we also act as social workers, as confidants, as friends, as, community outreach advocates, as special event representatives for the city. I mean, anything that they need to do, anything that the city needs us to do, we just do in that manner.
Excellent. Thank you both. And thank you both for the hard work you put in, because I recognize it is a lot. So I want to learn a little bit more about how each of your roles plays into the bigger picture of the EMS division. So Chrissy, tell us a little bit about what you do. Is it kind of logistics a good way to put it, or is it
so much more?
Yeah. A&E is kind of like the logistics hub for the Philadelphia Fire Department. We supply anything that anyone goes on, any first responder company, paramedic, EMT, fire marshal, anything that they would need, from the gloves to the stretchers to the AEDs. Every piece of equipment comes out of our office. We're in charge of maintaining all the supplies for the field, and making sure that everyone has every piece of state-of-the-art equipment that they need to care for any aspect of the call that they would go out on. While it's not an interesting topic to talk about, it's an important topic to talk about, because no one on this job could do anything related to the citizens or patient care without our office touching it. So that's basically what we do.
It's hard to respond to calls if you don't have the equipment to be prepared for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a lot of sense. And Jackie, how about you?
I read everybody's patient care reports. So if you are transported to the hospital, chances are I have read your report. My job is to make sure that the members we have instructions on how to treat people per their medical complaint that we are, it's called protocols, and they're state protocols. And I just make sure everybody is given the right dosage of medicine and the right amount of time and such like that. It's not like a disciplinary thing. It's not to get people in trouble. It's to make sure that we're providing the highest level of care for the citizens of Philadelphia. And it's also a good catch all, because our members are seeing everybody at their worst. So sometimes our members need a call from somebody else saying, are you okay? Sorry you had to see that today. Do you need to talk? Do you need to vent or whatever? So it's not just reading the protocols, it's seeing what's going on out there, anything new trends and stuff like that. So we just try to make sure everybody's getting the best deal all around.
Absolutely. And we touched on this a little bit about being prepared for every situation. I know last month we spoke to our dispatchers, who some people call the first responders. When our EMS teams are called out on calls, you're working with just the information you have from the dispatcher, correct?
Absolutely.
So what does that look like, being prepared for any situation?
I want to say this right, because I love our dispatchers and they do an amazing job. But they can only work with what they're given. You know what I mean? If somebody calls and says they have toe pain and you get there and they're shot, then there's nothing that the dispatchers could have done. At the same time, somebody might call and say that they're shot and they think we're going to get there quicker and their toenail is falling off or whatever. I think that we would love some updated call taking criteria to make sure we got the correct level of service out to the correct person in the quickest manner possible. But for the most part, I mean, we know where we're going, and 99.9% of us on the fire department, if you just give us the address, we'll get there and take care of whatever's
just ready to jump in.
Yeah, just give it to me and we'll figure it out and go from there.
Excellent. And then Chrissy, I'll start with you for this one. You have been a member of the department for, we'll say, a few years. We don't have to compare who's the oldest. What do you find most rewarding about your career? Why did you even get into this?
So real quick, I was in college at the time looking for a part-time job that offered flexible hours. And someone had told me about being an EMT. It was a 24/7 job. Went to EMT school, became an EMT. And at the time, private ambulance companies were like a hub for firefighters looking for part-time income before the days of unlimited overtime with the fire department, right? So you would meet a lot of firefighters that you would get to work with them. You would hear about what they did. And I had no interest in being a firefighter or being in the fire department, anything like that. And then I was actually going to school to be a nurse anesthetist. I met a firefighter who said, hey, the city's giving away free scholarships if you want to be a paramedic. And it just so happened I was in LaSalle at the time, going to my career counselor to try and figure out where to go from there. And she told me, well, it's not a given, but if you had innovation experience and you had emergency medicine, that may give you a step up, because nurse anesthetist school is very competitive. So I said, well, let's see if I can get a scholarship and not have to pay for anything, because I wasn't taking out any more loans. And like over 500 people applied. They picked 30. I was one of them. The caveat was that you owed the city 2 years of service, because at the time they really couldn't get paramedics. And I said, okay, I'll sign up for 2 years. And I actually felt that I liked it. I didn't know why I liked it, but I just liked it. Every day was different. It's not a normal 9-to-5 job. You never know what you're going into. The days cultivate based on the calls that you have. And sometimes you really make a difference in somebody's life. And I kind of never left from that.
That's amazing. How about you?
So I was a waitress and wanted to go to school to be a nurse. And there was a bunch of firefighters. Man, firefighters really have the brain
just
for
roll it
sandwiches. And they kept saying, join the firehouse, you'll get your AMT free. So I turned 21 and joined the volunteer firehouse and was loving the big red fire trucks and got my fire schools and then got my AMT and B at the time. And I was like, oh, I really do like this. This is fun. And then I became a paramedic. And now 15 later, Philly is still stuck with me.
Excellent. And real quick, last question, and then we'll wrap up. What advice would you give to someone who wants to be a paramedic or EMT?
Run. No.
Right.
Do it. It is one of the sometimes most physically draining, mentally draining, emotionally draining, horrific days. But then you have that one day or that one person, and it just makes everything else so much worthwhile.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
yeah, I think so too. I mean, my biggest thing growing up with the fire department is, if you speak to my family or even to my husband, who I met on this job, they will tell you I'm a totally different person than there was the day I walked into this job. So, and you don't even realize it. You as a person do not realize your whole personality changes just with the type of calls and the environment that you work in constantly. So, I mean, mental health is a big deal for anyone in the fire service and the police department and the military. Find a confidant, find somebody that, I would never want to go home and tell my sisters who work as insurance adjusters or teachers things that I've gone through. Find a confidant that you can have an outlet to, and someone you feel comfortable talking to. And, it may not be someone in your hierarchy, but someone that you could just bounce things off and just talk about things and know that you're not the only one that goes through things.
Excellent advice. Thank you both for being here, Lieutenant Severio, Paramedic Murphy. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back shortly to talk about arson awareness and how to talk to your kids about fire. We'll welcome a guest from the Fire Marshal's office. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
As birthplace to the first volunteer fire companies, Philadelphia is home to one of the nation's premier fire museums. Fireman's Hall Museum displays the city's fire history in addition to promoting fire safety. You can visit Fireman's Hall Museum in Old City at 147 North 2nd Street. Visit firemanshallmuseum.org to learn more, or watch the museum's show, Curator's Corner, on LaSalle TV.
Welcome back to Freedom from Fire. I'm your host, Philadelphia Fire Department Communications Director, Rachel Cunningham. We just had a great conversation with two women from our EMS division, and now we're moving on to the Fire Marshal's office to talk about arson awareness. I'm joined today by Lieutenant George Juarez. Lieutenant Juarez, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So to start off, tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, and your role in PFD.
I've been with the fire department for 31 years. The last 13 years, I've been with the Fire Marshal's office as an assistant fire marshal. I'm also the canine handler for the Philadelphia Fire Department, the only accelerant detection canine that we have. I'm also assigned to the citywide arson and explosive task force, which is a combination of detectives, fire marshals, ATF, CFI, fire investigators, and CFI or ATF agents.
Excellent. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, and by the way, if your canine, who I know Donna is there with you, if she decides to show up, we would welcome an appearance from her. But we'll continue
I'll try.
We'll continue the conversation prior to that. So for those who don't know, what does the fire marshal's office do?
We're responsible for investigating all fires and explosions that happen inside the city of Philadelphia. We go out. We'll go out on school fires. We go out on fumes runs. If someone's taken to the hospital, we investigate them. We investigate building collapses, any large loss of property, or all fire deaths. We also investigate.
So obviously your office responds to a wide variety of fire cases, not just, arson or crime in that way. But I do want to focus a little bit on arson because Arson Awareness Week is in May. And this year, the U.S. Fire Administration has focused on preventing youth fire setting. So just to start that conversation, what is arson?
Arson is a criminal act of deliberately setting fires.
Okay. So when y'all are investigating, how do you figure out whether it was an arson or just an unfortunate situation?
Our investigations start, and we're just looking to find out what the cause of the fire is. So we have a process. We have to do a 360 around the exterior of the property. Then we go into the property, find the room of origin or floor of origin first, then the room of origin. Then we break that room down, and then we look for ignition sources in those areas. So we could have an accidental ignition source with electrical wiring. We could have a candle. We could have incense. We're looking to try and rule out everything we can to come to that conclusion of what caused the fire.
All right. And what would you say, and I know you're in the fire marshal's office, not the prevention office, but having been with the department, you said 31 years, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give on the topic, of arson awareness, particularly with children and fire? What advice would you give parents about making sure their kids, don't set fires?
Yeah, just make sure that you don't leave lighters unattended, candles. People leave candles and then they'll start to wash. Children are still in the room. They may go play with that candle because they're used to that, because they're used to blowing out candles on their birthday cake. So they're used to seeing a candle lit, and they may pick it up and they don't mean to set the fire, but it happens. Incense, the same thing. Around the stove, be careful when you're cooking. Kids don't burn themselves with your oil. There's few things there. And then like your electrical wiring, if you have an extension cord run, make sure you don't put too many things into that. Make sure you don't put in like a thin extension cord you buy at the dollar store. Make sure you're not putting a heater on that or an air conditioner, not plugging it into that, because that'll break down the wiring and stuff like that.
Because the wattage is
yes,
different.
it's not made to carry the amount of electric that your air conditioner needs or your heater needs.
Absolutely. So what kind of calls, I know you explained earlier that y'all get called out, school fires, explosions and all that. What do you see the most of? I guess the most common types of calls you get.
Me personally, they're arsons. They're
Mhm.
incendiary fires I see most of, because I'm part of the task force. I run the K9 on all, not all, but a lot of the arsons that we have. If somebody uses charcoal lighter fluid, I'll run the dog. We'll get a good sample that way. That way we can send it to the lab and get it back. And then we can actually say, yes, charcoal lighter fluid was used.
Wow. Yeah. A lot of science goes into it. So I have to ask, just because everyone loves Donna, the canine, how did she get into her job?
Well, she was going to be a CNI dog. She failed out of that because she would smell something and want to go find out what that is. So she failed out of there, and ATF, every year they'll go and we get trained down in Front Royal, Virginia. But every year they go and try and find bomb dogs and accelerant detection canines. And what they'll do is they'll go test them. And if they work out, they take them down to Front Royal. They put them in a kennel. When a class comes up, they start imprinting them on different liquids, different accelerants. And they slowly train them for 6 weeks. And then you go down for 6 weeks and train with them. All you're doing is watching the dog. The dog's trained already. So, but she was a CNI dog and she failed. So it worked out for her.
It's like she got into a good career here.
Yes, she did.
So what advice would you have for people who want to join the fire department?
I would just keep taking the test. As many times as you can, take the test. Because sometimes you'll be 1 or 2 off. Sometimes you'll be 200 off. Just keep taking the test.
And why did you get into being in the fire department? What started your path?
I can't lie to you. I was 2 from getting laid off at Boeing Helicopter. So I took a $8,000 pay cut, and it was the best move I've ever made.
How come?
Well, I wanted to start a family and I didn't want to get laid off. So but my career has been great. I've been on engine companies. I've been the water operations officer. I got to the fire marshal's office. I absolutely love my job.
Are there any particular jobs or cases that you've handled in your career that are really meaningful to you, maybe that kind of keep you going, encourage you, that kind of thing?
There's a lot. There's, one we had in Frankfurt, we had a woman that was setting fires. We didn't know she was setting different rubbish fires. And then it got to buildings and it got bigger and bigger. And I think she ended up lighting 17 fires. And with the help of another fire investigator in the office who called, we found a videotape of her. And through like 4 or 5 weeks, there was different fires that we responded to, and we finally found her. They did put her in prison. She turned around and got her life together in prison. She got the help she needed. She was addicted to drugs. She got her life together. And then when she got out, she sent us all a letter thanking us for what we did.
That's really amazing.
Yeah, she's doing good now, from what I understand.
Thanks for sharing that. That's a great story. I did want to ask also, so each week, do you get a certain amount of arson calls? Do you get a lot of calls relating to that per week, or?
I go out, I'm going to say I probably go out 5-6 times a week with my K9. And then the office we do around 2,000 investigations a year. And out of those investigations, around 600 are arsons. We're pretty busy.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's only 11 of us.
Yeah, y'all absolutely stay busy. So I appreciate you coming on and talking to us. But I just want to thank all my guests for joining us today on Freedom from Fire. You can learn more about the Philadelphia Fire Department by visiting phila.gov/fire. If you'd like to keep up with our show, Freedom from Fire, you can look for us on Verizon Channel 36, Comcast Channel 56, and LaSalle TV's YouTube page. We also want to encourage everyone to check out our Firemen's Hall Museum. It's great for both kids and grown-ups. It's located at 147 North 2nd Street. You can meet with our museum curator, firefighter Brian Anderson. And there's also a gift shop. A lot of people like to get patches and t-shirts. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in and watching. And until next time, remember, fire is everyone's fight. Stay safe and remain free from fire.